All right, let's take a look at the properties of parallelograms. Now that we're done with exterior and interior sums of polygons, we're now focusing on quadrilaterals, which is our four-sided shapes. So number one here, I have the very most basic type of question with a parallelogram. So a parallelogram kind of looks like a rectangle that's kind of like pushed over leaning. I have four pretty easy properties to memorize here. Opposite sides are parallel, opposite sides are congruent, opposite angles are congruent, and consecutive angles are supplementary. So pretty much everything that's opposite are congruent. So let's look at AD. AD is opposite of BC, so AD is 8. BC is our bottom side. Opposite is 15. They're equal. Let's not go to A, but let's go to B. Opposite angles. Okay, these are opposite. They kind of point to each other. Opposite angles are equal. Whoops. So now let's look at angle A. So here's our property number 4, consecutive angles. That means angles directly next to each other, kind of neighborly, consecutive, maybe neighbors, are supplementary, meaning they add up to 180. So these are not equal. So if they're next to each other, they add up to 180. If they're opposite, they're equal. So that makes angle A 180 minus 68 is 112. Now I can go to angle C. If I know angle A, I'm definitely going to get angle C. So that's 112. So I hope that was pretty easy to memorize. One more time. Okay, JK needs to be 21 because it's opposite of 21. KL is going to be 29. Angle J is opposite of L, so that's 127. Now angle K is our first neighbor consecutive pair with angle L. So those add up to 180. So that one has to be, let's see, 43. No, 53. So 53 and 127 add up to 180, and angle K and angle M are equal. So this would be 53 as well. All right, solving for X. If they're angles, it's a opposite, set them equal to each other, which we just talked about that. But these aren't opposite. These are consecutive or neighborly. These add up to 180. So your equation for number 3 would be the 8x minus 12 plus the 3x plus 5 equals 180. That would be your equation for number 3. And I'm not going to solve it, or we're just going to move on, because by now I think you have solid skills at this. If not, we can get you help some other time. Number 5. Now this is our newest property. Okay, I have it down here. It says diagonals bisect each other. So that means if these were the diagonals, that means they cut each other in half, but they're not equal to each other. So if these were diagonals, a blue diagonal and a red diagonal, they cut each other in half, but are not equal to each other. All right, so this has got a lot going on and a lot of information up here. And look at the way they're naming these angles. These are tough. All right, so XY is 15. So as I start to label things, I already know this is 15, okay? WX is 22, so if that's the top side, I already know the bottom side's 22. WT is 10. This is our first diagonal. I'm going to put it right on that diagonal. That's half the diagonal, WT. So since these two cut each other in half, that means this also has to be 10 on the other side. All right, now take a look at this. WZY. How in the world do I read that? W to Z to Y. We start at W to Z to Y. That is that entire bottom corner. Now there's two little angles inside that, and they are not equal to each other. That is not a bisector. These two bisect each other. This is not a bisector. But we do know that entire corner is 62. So I'm going to put a 62 down here. But even though I don't know what these two are, I can say this entire corner is also 62. Remember, opposite angles are equal. So if this is 68, that's 68. If this entire bottom corner is 62, so is this one. Now let's look at this next angle they give us, WXT. Now they're starting to give us a little more information. WXT is a part of that 62. That's 27. Now check this out. Watch what I can do with this 27. So 27's here. I now know what this piece is. I can say 62 minus 27. So this angle is 35. Now I'm about to show you the relationship between this corner here and these two numbers and this corner down here. Whoops. What you need to see in a parallelogram, and it's hard to see on this picture because there's so much going on. Oh, I used to have a parallelogram up here. I guess I do not have a parallelogram anymore. All right, sweet. I'll build one. So what you need to see on the parallelogram is something like you need to be able to see this information here. Back in Geometry A, we talked about parallel lines and a transversal. And we talked about alternate interior angles are equal. That's true here. So what you need to know is that these two on the same side of the transversal are not equal on a parallelogram. These two are equal. So what you need to do is take, if it's on the bottom, go to the top and cross the transversal. That's the equal angle. Now watch me apply that here. This 27 going to go down to the other corner and cross, and it's now on the bottom. This 35, alternate interior angle, cross that transversal to the top, and you have successfully applied those angles correctly. They crisscross. That is true on these two angles too, or also with these two angles down here. So now they say WXT is 77. No, ZWT is 77. Okay, so ZWT is this one right here. This is 77. This is also 77. Okay? So then we can take all the information we have and start to fill this out with that. Now, I know this is getting crazy with all these numbers, but watch this. How can I find some missing angles in here? Pay attention that you should have 4 triangles. And on this triangle, I'll name it triangle 1, and I'll name this triangle 2. You have 2 of the 3, and you've worked with triangles long enough, and you can find that third triangle, or that third angle. 180 minus 77 and 35 is 68. So these two are 68, and they are vertical. And how can I get into the other triangles? Is do a 180. So that means this has to be 112 because these two are a half circle. This is 112. And now look at your triangle here. I got 180 minus 112 and 27. And I now can find this angle is 41. And remember our alternate interior angles? This one up here is 41. And yes, I agree with you. That is a lot of chaos going on. But it's interior sum of 4 triangles. That's something you know how to do. Vertical angles is something you know how to do. And alternate interior angles you've done before. You just got to remember how it works. So all these things you've done before, we just got to remember how to do it and be able to see it in all of this chaos. All right, I'm not going to fill all these little blanks out. We have everything here that we need to fill it out. Number 11, find angle B. Okay, so what you'll need to do is when you have to find the measure of an angle, that means we're finding X and plugging it in. So angle B up here is not going to help us. I mean, if we get X here and plug it into A and C, we still will need to do more information. These two angles are equal to each other, so that's how we'll solve this. So we'll say 6x minus 15 equals 4x plus 11. And that will get us, I guess we'll say 2x equals 26. And now x is 13. Now, we haven't found the answer yet. X is 13. Let's plug it into this angle here or here. 6 times 13 minus 15. This angle right here, angle A, is 63. So now I can find angle B because these are consecutive and they add up to 180. So 180 minus 63, 117. So finding X, solve for X, all you do is set up the equation. Finding a measure, you'll need the equation, you'll need X, and then you'll need to plug it in. All right, so let's do our last one. If KLH, let's find KLH. All right, KLH is that entire bottom. If that's 134, that whole bottom is 134. Okay, this whole bottom's 134. Solve for X. Now let's go back to that picture I talked about here, okay? Remember, these on a parallelogram, that it's on the parallelogram, it's different for other pictures. These are not equal on a parallelogram. All right? You have to go to the other side and cross the transversal. These two are equal. So, check this out. We're going to do a really tough one. These two are not equal, but I know this one is 25 because these two are equal. Now, Is it possible to figure out what this whole corner is? Remember, if I know this corner is 134, subtracting it from 180 would get me this angle. So 180 minus 134 is 46. This whole blue angle is 46, and there's two angles inside it. Could I say 4x plus 9 plus that 25 equals that 46? They all occupy the same space. Therefore, I can say that that equation will work. So there is your equation for x. And it's tough. But I hope I went nice and slow and explained everything clearly. We'll get better with practice.